And as you listen to him read the passage from Isaiah, at the very center of the story is the proclamation that among the things that he has come to do is to give recovery of sight to the blind. Most of us, when we hear that, assume that he is talking about blind people. Could it possibly be that he is metaphorically talking about us? That we are blind to what God is doing? That we need our eyes open to see clearly so that we might understand and perceive the power of God at work in and through us? Sensate epistemology is knowing things not just through the mind, but through the senses. And this portion of this gospel is filled with references and senses. Recovery of sight to the blind, and then when he's done, he says, all the eyes of the synagogue were fixed on him. And then it says today, Jesus says, these scriptures today, these scriptures, not tomorrow and next day, today, these scriptures are fulfilled. These scriptures are marvelous as long as they're way out of the future sometimes. But when you're about economic justice and redistribution of God's blessings today, that's a whole different story. And when it finally sank in to the people in the synagogue, they take up stones to kill him. Jesus goes, he picks out a text, Isaiah 61, which was probably a very popular nationalistic text of hope and expectation that God would deliver Israel. And if you read the text, that God would bring vengeance upon Israel's enemies. But in reading the text or quoting it, Jesus turns it upside down. He turns it upside down by what he omits from the text and what he adds to the text. Jesus omits any sense of vengeance. That day of grace when God acts is a day for all nations and all peoples. And what Jesus adds to the text comes from Isaiah 58, verse 6. Is this not the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to loose the straps of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free? The word that is translated to loose in Isaiah 58, 6 is used for the forgiveness of sins and for the forgiveness of debt. And that word in Greek is used twice in Luke 4:18. It gets translated to proclaim release to the captives and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. This is a Jubilee text. We have this incredible capacity to silence our scriptures, such as Jubilee year, because it's in the Old Testament and it's just law, so we can throw it all out. But this text is strategic because it is at the very heart of the people. Jesus chooses not just any old text, but a strategic text. Because while he was in the wilderness, Jesus got it clear that where his people went wrong is they forgot all about Sabbath economics and how to sing about God's deliverance in Jubilee. They forgot about what it means to be called out of mainstream empire into an alternative community. They forgot that they were gathered together to be that alternative community, and that is what religion was all about. Sabbath economics, that whole system of looking at God's world that grew from the seventh day, when they were to rest from gathering manna, it grew from that day to yearly actions, which included provisions made for the widow, the orphan, and the immigrant. And then it continued to grow from a yearly action to a seventh year of actions. And on the seventh year, there was forgiveness of debts. And the tradition continued to grow beyond that until finally, after the seventh year, the next year would be proclaimed a Jubilee year. Jubilee, where all debts, make no mistake about it, folks, we're talking money, all debts were forgiven. Where foreclosed land, property that Israelites had to sell to their neighbor because they could not afford it, that property on Jubilee year is returned to them. And not just the property, but it's returned with enough resources to last them through the whole first year of Jubilee until the first harvest comes in. So that their place within community is preserved and restored. Jesus' sermon at Nazareth is a wake-up call. It is what he was all about. It is what faith in God and a life of faithfulness is all about. It underscores what true religion means. Care for the least of these, compassion for the neighbor, and concern for the neighborhood. The alternative way of God is a far cry from the way of empire. In fact, they are very, very different. So here's a question for you to ponder as we move from worship to our annual meeting. If Jesus came into our church today and proclaimed a year of Jubilee for the whole world, for all of the orphans, for all of the widows, for all of the immigrants, if Jesus came and proclaimed a year of Jubilee for all people and told us that it starts right here, right now, this very day, how would we respond?